Curry. This is an odd question for anyone to ask anyone.
Curry is spicy. It's usually meat with a lot of spices and sauces.
It is a gravy, not necessarily have to do with meat or vegetables, but you eat it with rice or anything that's complementary, really.
It's a good comfort food.
A dish that you eat with your family, and you eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
I think, to me, curry makes me think of my new home with Lola. We live on East 5th Street, and there's an Indian grocery store right on the corner, Joel Specialty, and so they have really good curry powder that's like really cheap. So I actually learned to cook curry after I moved here.
The curries of my childhood, South Indian curries. Very, very much comfort food, very, very important to me. I like turn to them, I'm like sad and like that kind of stuff.
One of my favorite memories as a child is being with my grandmother. My grandmother was old, deaf, unable to read, but she could cook a mean curry chicken.
No, this is my favorite thing. I used to have this sometimes in high school for lunch was chicken Cox curry with a bomb. That was like, you could not take that away from me.
It's a warm Sunday at home. It means that all the family around at the table. It means the dog barking in the monsoon.
But I grew up with Jamaican curry chicken, curry anything, curry cabbage curry, beef curry, fish curry, curry.
I really think of typical mom or grandmother cooking, even though they do make curry, but I personally think of Thai curry, specifically Penang curry, or red curry or green curry, and it being really spicy.
Different kinds of curry. That's whole other, like, also kind of comfort food, but in a kind of different sense.
There's Japanese curry, Thai curry, various types of Indian curry. It's just such a global dish, I think.
Think of it as something that's more East Asian. I don't really eat it on the regular, especially when I'm not at home.
Now that I'm teaching this class just now on Afro-Asian fusion cultures and where we come from and where we're going, it's an interesting conversation to think of curry as not a Jamaican thing, but as a thing that was derived from the Asian culture.
Different states and regions, they have their own interpretation of curry, and I guess you can just extrapolate it to how Iranians or Middle East people would make curry versus how East Asian people make curry. We just sort of do whatever we want, and you know, if it tastes good, it's good.
All I know is that it's delicious.
And it tastes really good and it makes me full.
So curry, yay curry.
Hey all, thank you for joining us. We're doing a mukbang for curry. So we have 3 different curries here. One from Go-Go Curry, Japanese fast food curry. One from Malay Maike, right?
Maike, yeah.
Which is a fish curry. And then we have curry laksa from Rasa.
So ready for it.
So what kind of curry did you guys have growing up?
I don't consider what I ate growing up as curry. Even though, like, I think curry is associated with, like, a South Asian... being from South Asia, for me, my food wasn't really curry to me. Because I'm, like, Pakistani, so I always thought curry was an Indian thing rather than a South Asian thing.
Interesting, okay.
Growing up, I had also not encountered the word curry, except for when I would go to, like, Indian restaurants. And it was very confusing for me, because, like, korma is so different from jhol, which is what I ate at home, which is more liquidy. And I don't know, like, curry to me was a restaurant word. When I came here, which was 2010, kids, like, literally called me curry girl, right? So I was like, wait, what? Yeah, you know? I was just confused about it. And then somehow it also caused me to be possessive of the word. So when I actually encountered Japanese curry for the first time, my brain was like, that's not curry.
How about you, Richie? Take your time.
Well, I remember when I was little, my aunt used to make me curry. But I don't know where I would say that the curry is from, because she always made it using boxes or using curry paste from, I think it was from Costco. Actually, I have a box of curry with me.
Ooh. Can you show it to the camera?
Yes. Which one?
Both, if you want.
Yeah, I mean, this is how I knew it. It's just something that was really convenient for my aunt to make me after school. But I never associated it with like a particular ethnic group.
Okay.
It was always something that was kind of ambiguous as to like where it was from.
And it's interesting because you thought of it as a home food, and I specifically thought of curry as like a restaurant food too.
And there's so many different kinds of curry too, right? So how would you define curry if you had to?
It seems like it requires some sort of liquid where there's stuff inside the liquid.
Yeah, like a spice, like masala-y kind of soupy texture.
Yeah, exactly.
With vegetables or sometimes meat.
What usually curry has in common in like restaurant settings, not at home settings, or maybe like ready to go settings, is curry powder. Specifically,
so that yellow, I guess, powder or cube formed. Is that actually curry though?
No.
No. Okay.
It's a British invention.
How so?
So basically, what happened was when the British colonized South Asia, specifically the Madras region, they wanted to describe the food to people back home. And in Madras, they spoke Tamil most of the time. So when a Tamilian person would describe their food, they would use the word kari, which means burnt or cooked or charred. But they would just like use that word to become curry. And when they started like exporting Indian food and spices to to England, for example, they formalized the word in cookbooks in like the 17th century, and then it specifically became curry powder when they made the spice process industrialized and started making boxes of it to ship to army what's it called, messes, cafeterias, and to ration it to indentured, like South Asian indentured laborers.
That's interesting. I feel like that really ties into what y'all think of curry and how y'all define curry. Because Richie, you grew up in Bellevue, right, near Seattle?
Yes.
So you grew up in America, and you define curry as this like packaged thing that was really simple to make, right? Whereas you guys describe curry as more of like a restaurant cuisine.
What is that curry?
This is curry laksa, which goes with fishbowl
This
over
one?
here. Yes. So maybe we should pour this.
Does anyone know the history of curry laksa?
No, what's the history of curry laksa?
So it's a Malaysian curry that is specifically. This was before curry powder was exported to Malaysia, to the British. It was when Indians and Arab traders used to trade with the Malaysian islands, and they introduced like the spices there. I think turmeric and tamarind were two spices that they introduced into that area, and then they had a lot of Chinese immigration, so that's why they started using noodles, which is so different from like other forms of curry that I grew up with, you know?
Right. So there are rice-based curry dishes and like noodle-based curry dishes. Okay.
So you're saying that this Japanese curry that we have here and Indian curry are related because of curry powder.
Yeah.
Curry laksa comes before powder got to Malaysia.
Yeah.
But it's still because of the British.
No.
No.
Because it was they were traders in like 700, 800 AD.
So like pre-industrialization.
Yeah, definitely pre-industrialization.
Which counters the packaged curry, right?
Yeah. And like curry itself in India only came about because of 700, 800 AD encounters with Arab and Persian traders.
Interesting. Okay. And what is this? This is punch?
Yes.
Fruit punch?
Yes.
So this is sort of an amalgam of like different identities and different, backgrounds as well, right?
Wow. I thought it was American.
I always thought it was just an American drink.
Well, I remember that I had a conversation with Dr. Ray.
Yeah.
Who's a food studies professor at NYU, and he talked about punch coming from Punjab.
Oh, interesting.
It comes from the word five, which is punch.
Aha.
And like the 5 rivers flow into Punjab, and there are 5 ingredients or something like that, and so like that's where the drink, I guess, comes from. But
That's
it's so
interesting.
Americanized.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize.
I mean, fruit punch is one of like the ideal American drinks, right? Next to like lemonade, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I never realized.
What do you think of like when you think of punch? Like a setting?
Like a high school
Like-
dance.
Yeah, right?
Fun and like
Mhm.
barbecues.
I think of like Hawaiian punch.
Yeah.
Same,
Like,
yeah.
the type of curry that we don't, or like the region of curry that we don't have at the table right now is Caribbean. And like specifically Guyanese and Trinidadian curries. And like, I didn't realize that was a thing until very recently, you know?
Well, I think curry is definitely like more universal than we think of it. If like we're gonna go back to the term that the British coined up, like so many things fit under it. And I think now it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
I think it's actually a really interesting thing to like look at it as a way that we're all kind of connected through food.
It's so fluid, right?
Yeah.
I feel like this relates to the idea of like existence as resistance.
Yeah.
Right? Like curry being this present like umbrella, I guess, of cuisine. And it just like for everyone to enjoy, right? This food is this constant that brings people together. How does that tie into, I guess, your identities and like I guess the politics of your identities?
You want to speak to that first?
Yeah.
Ooh. I mean, for me, I feel like Asian America is so hard to define.
Yeah.
And curry is just like a prime example of that. So I think like that's the beauty of like relating our identity to this food is how fluid it is, how inclusive it can be, but at the same time it highlights the multiplicities of the Asian American diaspora. But yeah, I don't know. What do y'all think?
Well, I'm thinking about how I didn't know about all these curries so far in my life. And I've lived in the US for like a while now. So, and that to me just feels incorrect. And the same thing about like the Asian American political movement. It's not like something I had access to as a younger kid, and I wish I did. It would have made like interacting with my parents, interacting with other communities easier. It's that idea of like not thinking of yourself as an ally to anti-blackness, but a co-struggler in racism. And that gives you political agency as an Asian American.
Interesting. Okay.
We have so much to build solidarity over while still celebrating our differences. But I think that knowledge is like we have to go looking for it. Why is it not something that's the dominant thing that we know about?
Yeah.
So do you think that's an issue in our community? The lack of solidarity between us and black and brown folks?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
And if so, how do you think we can get more involved in those kind of communities? Or do you have like a proposed solution?
Oh. I'm just thinking back to the story of Bunny Chow that you just told us.
It's a story of how many indentured laborers in South Africa that came through the British and Dutch kidnappings of them during apartheid essentially snuck really nice like restaurant food, curry, in loaves of bread. And loaves of bread was the only thing that they were allowed to sell to black people. But they would sneak in this delicious food and give it to black people. And that's what Bunny Chow is. It's like curry in a loaf of bread.
Oh, wow.
And the reason why it's called Bunny Chow is because of the Banya caste, which was a merchant caste that is in South Africa. So like their curry was like the Banya curry, I guess. So then that's where Bunny Chow comes from.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah. So it's food as this act of solidarity. That's amazing.
And it's symbolic too. Like,
right. Food does bring everyone together, right?
Yeah.
Like we're enjoying this food here and talking about food.
I think food's definitely like an amazing unifier. Just by like hosting events, you know, expanding on this, like, oh, bring your own version of curry. And then that's a way of like people to understand that the similarities we share. But I do think like it is interesting to see how like this term curry came from like the British, and it's something that they use because it's convenient to just mesh all of Asian food together, right? And in the same way, that's kind of how Asian American came about. It's like, you know, there's such diversity in amongst Asian Americans, but we're all kind of just categorized together, which kind of, in a way, erases the diversity within us as a group. It like reminds me of how I never really thought of myself as being Asian because I'm brown.
And I think there is definitely something to be said about this, I guess,
Go for it.
dominance of East Asian peoples in the in the Asian American diaspora, right? How do you think we can kind of fight back against that dominant image of our collective community?
I just think it's like we need to acknowledge that there is more than one type of way to be Asian, you know? Because like you said, there is, like, the word Asian evokes the image of like someone who's pale skin, you know, from like East Asia, rather than like all the different other different people from Asia who speak different languages, who eat different foods.
I just wanted to end our mukbang by asking your thoughts on, or ideas or definitions of what Asian America is to you.
I think Asian America is a sort of collective community in my mind of all of the Asian and Pacific peoples, and that are unified through our cultures and our history in America.
For me, it's a little difficult to define it, but I guess my answer is sort of similar to that. For a while, I thought of Asian American as just like people from Asia living in America, but now I know that it's more about like the histories of people from who were, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Like I would say I'm originally from Asia, but like I have Asian ancestry. But like looking at Asian ancestry, looking at the people and their history, not just of like how they tried to define themselves within America, but like how they coexist with other people in America, because I think that's something that like is often very ignored in America. Like it's as if we're like new immigrants and that we haven't been here for a while, but you know, we are American, we've been here for a while.
So that idea of like a perpetual foreigner.
Yeah.
I see.
I think about Asian American as moving away from whiteness entirely and moving and realizing our positionality in the politics of race and the hierarchy of race, and like that it means more than race too. I think that the political project of Asian Americans is to basically change what people think of what an American looks like, because what people think an American looks like has a lot to do with a violent history, and the reason why we're here has to do a lot with violent history. So that's confronting people with that history by calling ourselves Asian Americans.
I hope you enjoyed us eating food and our thoughts. This has been APA Bridge, and thank you so much for joining us.
Please eat curry.
Yeah, eat more curry.